It's Wednesday, it's Hump Day, September 3rd, 2025. Your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by the Advocates Injury Attorneys. If you've been injured in an accident, don't face it alone. Get an experienced local Wyoming attorney on your side. Free consultations at wyomingadvocates.com or give them a call, 307-800-1952. You deserve an advocate. Well, a beautiful shot from the grasslands of Nebraska from Labor Day. It's really nice to get those bluer skies this time of year. Of course, it helps if we don't have as much wildfire smoke drifting through the region. The highlights going forward will be two cool surges moving into the central plains of the U.S. One kind of moving in today and tonight, a stronger one, late Thursday into Friday. So for folks that are along and east of the divide, you'll feel these fluctuations in temperatures. West of the divide, as we showed you, moisture yesterday is trapped, kind of like it was last week, as a resurgence of subtropical moisture comes up. So the far western United States, you're going to have some shower and thunderstorm activity. Now that will likely pivot and come through the central Rockies as we get into the upcoming weekend, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Also, going to do a review of the summer months of June, July, and August. How well did the seasonal models do? What was the score, so to speak, in terms of temperature and precipitation? We'll take a look at that. Yesterday was the day of Virga. We did have probably more isolated shower and thunderstorm activity than expected in some areas, especially in parts of central and southern Wyoming. But with fighting the drier air, we had the showers not terribly productive at producing a lot of rain, but a little in some areas. So a nice shot there of a shower coming through the Casper area. Another shot of Virga, this time in the Muddy Gap area. And then a little bit of weak Virga yesterday morning out in the Wind River Basin near Pavilion, Wyoming. So this time of year, you do get more in the way of Virga because the air does tend to be drier and you have that less humidity air. Now let's do this quick review. So if we take the summer months of June, July, and August, and we were to add that 90 or so day period together from June 1 through August 31st, what you're seeing here on the map with these colors are the temperature anomalies, where you see the yellow, the darker reddish colors. That's where temperatures were above average. Where you see blue, temperatures were below average, and white means they ended up pretty much spot on the 30-year average. So when we talk about averages, we take 30 years of climatological temperature data and we compare these 3 months to that 30 years of data. You can see the warmest part of the U.S. was the far west, especially areas west of the divide, then a little bit here in the Great Lakes. But this was a pretty unremarkable summer when it comes to temperature. We talked at times about how California was having a cool summer. Boy, that 3-month period they really did. This is what I would say a pretty average summer. You're always going to have islands of heat, some islands of coolness, some islands where temperatures were about average. We saw this signal here of cooler than average conditions in the southern plains. There's a connection to precipitation and temperature. There usually is in the summer pretty good correlation. Where the ground's wetter, it's going to be cooler. Where the ground's drier, it's going to be hotter. And where it was drier west of the divide, yeah, you can see that temperatures were certainly warmer. But how does this stack up to what the summer seasonal model said last spring? So if we go back in time and go to May 1st and look at what the European model was predicting for the 90-day period of the summer season, we get this. So you can see that there are some things the European got right. It was warmer than average here and a lot of west of the divide. It kind of missed the coolness in Canada, in California. It completely bombed right here, as we'll see here in a minute as we go back. But basically, as we told you in our seasonal long-range forecast, their European has a warm bias. So this is using May. So we're giving the European model the best opportunity to perform well by picking the model from May 1st. So if we go back and review the summer forecast, there was concern about a heat wave in the Corn Belt and a drought maybe forming in the Corn Belt. Well, that obviously didn't happen. The European model didn't catch this at all either. It was just overall too warm for everybody. So this is where you have to take into account the model biases. So here we are showing the model that does the best in the 10-day period, but did the worst in the 90-day period. Go figure. How did the Canadian model do? Well, the Canadian model over forecasted the cool, but I want to show you where the Canadian performed much better. It got the dryness west of the divide and the heat quite well. It picked up the below average temperatures that generally were here for most of the summer. It over forecasted it by quite a bit. The Canadian was just too cool. So we have to juggle the warm bias with the European, the cold bias with the Canadian. But the Canadian trend was much better. So if you look, Canadian reality. So the Canadian model really performed very well compared to the European model. This is why we have to take into these biases when we go and take a look at the winter forecast, is that you're going to see these biases. And a lot of times the biases are too strong. That was too strong of a cold bias, but it got it more right, and it got the trend overall more correctly. Precipitation, this should come as no surprise. The 90-day period, June 1st to August 31st. You can see the whole situation we saw all summer. If you were west of the divide, you were suffering from drought and extremely dry conditions. And if you line up where it was coolest this summer, it was really where it was the wettest. What you're seeing here in the blue and the green is the anomaly. Precipitation for that 90-day period was above average in the green and the blue areas there. So let's go to where we are now. We've got this high pressure, this skinny high pressure ridge in the Great Basin sticking up through the Pacific Northwest. And here we have the first push today of the real cooler air coming right out of Canada into the plains and the Great Lakes. The western edge of the coolness will just barely clip areas right here with temperatures slightly cooler, while west of the divide it will continue to be quite warm. But west of the divide, well, there's moisture. There it is, going all the way down here from Mexico all the way through here. So this axis of moisture is trapped underneath that high pressure ridge. So it's got nowhere to go. Here you can see the first cold front coming into the northern plains, the cool stratus deck clouds there coming into northern Minnesota, pushing that cooler air in. And you can really see that on the precipitable water. Look at the dry air coming out of Canada behind the front, and there's your frontal boundary right there. So you're going to have some showers and thunderstorms along the front. Here's your trapped moisture from Mexico all the way up to the Pacific Northwest. So kind of a little bit of an interesting scenario, then a little tongue of moisture here along the frontal boundary in Montana and northern Wyoming. This is Friday, so today and Friday. So you can see the moisture is still on the western slope, and another surge of cool air comes in. This is a good lesson in Canadian air masses. Canadian air masses, when they come in, are going to naturally be drier. Why? Well, there's just not a lot of water, and there's not very much warm water where these air masses are coming out of Canada. So they're going to tend to bring in drier air. Canadian air is going to bring lower humidity air in. And you can see quite the contrast here with the dry air moving into the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, behind the secondary cold surge coming on in. So we're going to have daily thunderstorms here west of the divide, cool dry air east of the divide, and that's as we get into the 3-day period of today, Thursday, and into the day on Friday. So this is what your thunderstorm pattern looks like. This is the forecast for thunderstorms today, tomorrow, and as we get on into Friday. So you can see there's going to be showers and thunderstorms along the frontal boundary, moisture trapped in on the back side of it, that cool, dry Canadian air really negating anything up here from happening. Now we take a look at the precipitation forecast through Sunday. There will be showers coming in along the front as it initially moves through into the northern plains and southern Canada. You can see the drier air wedge right there. But look at the showers and thunderstorms in New Mexico, Arizona, back into the Great Basin, parts of the Pacific Northwest. We're going to see some shower and thunderstorm activity get further eastward into western Wyoming and northwest Colorado as we get into the weekend, as that moisture rotates east as it begins to move. Notice this trailing area of showers right here. This comes in overnight Thursday into Friday morning. along and east of the divide for parts of Wyoming, Nebraska, and eastern Colorado. So there may be a little bit of shower activity on that frontal boundary as it comes through. Down south, we showed you this yesterday. This is now a hurricane. It has rapidly formed. And this could be a player for northwest Mexico and maybe down here as we get into the latter portions of the weekend into early next week in terms of maybe bringing tropical moisture into parts of Arizona and southwest New Mexico. We'll need to kind of keep an eye on that as there could be a lot of rain with some of these showers and thunderstorms for that area. When we get into Friday, we see the next push, the jet stream really taking a dive. This is a very impressive deep upper level low. So we're going to see much cooler air spill into the northern plains. The western boundary goes right up against the divide. So the coolest air gets pushed up against the front range, the I-25 corridor, but it can't get over the hump. And you can see that very well. These are the temperature anomalies by noon Friday. A real shot of cool fall-like conditions for a lot of the nation underneath this surge of colder air. And as we showed you yesterday, that cooler air spreads across the rest of the nation this weekend, while temperatures stay a little bit warmer along and west of the divide. Further out, this is by next Wednesday. So from a week from today, things shift around a little bit. We get an upper level low coming into the Pacific Northwest and the Great Basin. Now, it is likely not to move very much. So from the middle of next week to next weekend, notice the trough just kind of spins around a little bit. It doesn't push all the way through. So things are kind of stuck. This does bode well for this part of the country right here because this will keep it cooler. This will keep showers and thunderstorms along and west of the divide for a good portion of next week, with some of that moisture pushing eastward out during the course of next weekend. So it cools off in the far west. I wouldn't call it cold, cools off, and that will increase shower and thunderstorm activity in the far western United States. So things are a little bit different now. Some subtle changes going on as we get into the latter days of the summer season. Remember, the first day of fall officially is September 22nd, not that far away. Have yourself a good Wednesday. We'll see you tomorrow.